All right. And we're live. Welcome, everyone, to the Tyler McConnell Show with my guest, Johnny Blaze. Woo, fire in the chat. And Nick Brana is going to be dropping by here very soon. But I thought you can be the cool indie opening act, Johnny. You know what I mean? Johnny's been busy out there, y'all. He's choosing courage, which was the first video I ever made on this channel, that I was going to choose courage. And you've been doing it, brother.
Thanks, Tyler. I mean, what can I say? I've been inspired by what some of the members of the LaRouche movement have been doing, and of course the long history of revolutionary activism in this country. Even some of it, exemplified by people who now I need to call out, apparently, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But, if you've seen some of the actions from Jose Vega or Stuart Battle, or, some of the other LaRouche members or people that have been inspired by them, myself and Nick, we just realized that, now is the time. This is no time to be weak. This is no time to be cowardly. This is a moment that requires courage. So we got out there and we did it. What can I say?
Man, I'm proud of you guys. I'd love to see it, dude. It inspires me, I'm right there with you, but when I see it in the moment, are you nervous before you go do it? I mean, was it kind of like...
Yes. Very nervous. At Bernie, we hit 2 Bernie events. And at the first one, we kind of came in kind of late. So I was just all discombobulated. But then the second one is like, I got in and I wasn't sure if Nick could get in. I was just standing there waiting. And I was like, God, I cannot even breathe. I don't know how I'm going to yell at this guy or say anything right now. And I'm just surrounded by people. And, it's like being at the Tim Kaine rally the day before, and just nobody gets it. Nobody understands what we're saying, and they drag us out of there. And I'm just like, that's what's about to happen. It's like I'm about to do something and I know I'm just going to get forcefully dragged out.
And you did it anyway, brother.
I did it. And then the Biden thing was, I was standing there for probably 4.5 hours, just standing, like waiting for my moment. First waiting in line outside, and then like standing inside and just, chewing the fat with the people around me. And then just, standing through all these like Democratic Party toadies and exactly. And just like standing there. And I got really nervous, but then I sort of, keyed into my chi, and I started just talking to the people around me and, having a good conversation and trying to get them to understand my point of view. And, when the thing went down, they didn't understand my point of view, but I think I met them halfway.
Well, that peer pressure, even if you're surrounded by people you completely disagree with, it's easy to be like, oh, I don't want to rock the boat, but here we go. Why are you funding Nazis in the Ukraine, Bernie Sanders? And I love it.
I start doubting myself, like maybe the New York Times is right. Maybe they're not that kind of Nazis.
It's always in the back of your head. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my entire the dozens of hours that I've watched this for dozens of years, I was wrong. But let's show you the first clip you sent me. I am going to share it here. We got it pulled up, and I've never watched a video on the old tweeter before, but I'm sure it's just like anything else. Pull it back, share this tab. And this is Mr. Blaze here. And this is, where are you at in this video?
So we went to a get out the vote. It was sort of a canvassing operation in Northern Virginia for incumbent Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton. She's been in power since 2019. And then, of course, Senator Tim Kaine, Virginia, who's been in the Senate since 2010. Of course, Hillary's running mate. He's been on, the security council in the Senate. So he knows what's going on.
I can't believe it's Tim Kaine. It's the Tim Kaine.
It's Tim Kaine, and we busted him.
Wow. All right, let's enjoy this then. Here we go.
It's so good to be with you guys. So good to be with you guys. Actually, let me do this, and then I'll talk to you after. I'll talk to you after. Okay.
You're close to pushing us into nuclear war.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
come on. Come on.
We'll talk to you after. Guys, I'll talk to you after. I'll talk to you after. Okay, I'm gonna talk about Jennifer Wexton. So
Tim Kaine, this gentleman is correct. You have a lot to answer for with this war. We are talking about nuclear war here. You are doing a nuclear war here. You know that we overthrew the government of Ukraine. You know that we overthrew the government of Ukraine. You have sent $70 billion to Nazis. You have sent $70 billion to Nazis. This is not right. I am a voter and a taxpayer here, and that man has sent $70 billion of our tax money to Nazis. Get out.
Congresswoman, they're correct. You are starting the war in Ukraine. They're right. Why are supporting that unanimously? Why is every Democrat supporting the war unanimously? You're going to lead us to nuclear war with Russia.
Oh man. So I forgot Nick was in that video too.
That was arguably our best attempt from this weekend because we had Tim there at the beginning, a LaRouche member. I mean, just an old man. Like they really wanted to give him a break. It was just a beautiful intro. And then me there in the middle. You can see they got hands on me quick because they were already mad about Tim. And then when I piped up, they just hopped right over and started pushing me out. But then when Nick came in, I mean, you can just see them collectively crapping. They just couldn't believe there were three of us in there. But it was a message we needed to hear.
Yeah, man. The thing that stuck out to me the most was that one guy got a little bit of attitude with you. Did you notice that? He's like, "You're out of here, buddy."
Well, I got indignant. I don't know where that came from. That got silly. I am a
that's the American way. You have to say that. I mean, it's if you don't say I'm a taxpayer, if you don't say it, then it's not a real protest. I mean, they got to know.
I got to him a little bit when I pointed out that we had sent $70 billion to NAZIs in Ukraine. Tim Kaine signed off on every dollar. I think I got to the guy. So we'll see.
Yeah. I love it, dude. I love it. So you sent me another one. I don't think I've seen this one, but there's your pretty face. So let me see if there is a way. Share video file. Oh, that's nice.
And while you're getting that up, I just got an email on my phone, which reminds me, I'll just pass on the info to any of your viewers that I received from Jose in the LaRouche movement. I heard him on a Twitter space, and he said, if you want to get involved with this, sign up for every politician's mailing list in a 50-mile radius, which you can find them. And that's what I did. And I've gotten so many emails, especially from Catherine Cortez. I guess she's running for Congress in Nevada.
Oh, that just went off. You go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, sign up for every mailing list. Even if you maybe have to donate $5 to get on that sort of private list, it might end up being worth it. But they don't want us at these things. They plan these and they send these emails and notifications out at the last possible minute. I am not joking, like less than 24-hour notice. So you want to be signed up. We had Google alerts on our phones set up. Like I said, a Google alert for like Biden, Pittsburgh, get out the vote, whatever, something like that. So I'd get notified in the morning if there was any update. I downloaded the Philadelphia and Pittsburgh news apps. I mean, I had my ear to the ground. And welcome, Nick Brana.
Our big get. The Tyler McConnell show has arrived, y'all. Okay. You know, I wanted to say before I forget that what you said to do, Johnny, is exactly what Ralph Nader said in his Rats book. I don't like these people get no pressure from anywhere. You know what I mean? So just the slightest amount. But let's come back to that. Nick, I wanted to tell you, I thought about this in my head. You know, before you do these interviews, you're like, oh, yeah, I'll say that. That'll be a good thing. And I thought I've been going around telling all my friends, like, you guys won't believe. I can't believe. I'm a little starstruck. I'm going to talk to the Nick Brana of the People's Party. And everyone goes, who's that? And I realized I'm like in a very all of us know each other and we're a huge deal to each other, but you know, so that's a huge compliment to you with a little bit of humble pie. That's what every good friend does, right? Build you up and then pat you on the back a little bit.
Thanks, Tyler. Always
hey, no
count
problem,
on
man.
that. And Johnny here, he spent too much time with me, up and down all New York and Pittsburgh. We're road trip buddies now.
I love it. Well, I've only known you guys just a little bit of time, but I already feel like we're old friends. I really do. I think because we've swam in the same pool for 10,000 hours on our own time, you know, so.
Same here, man. I feel the same.
For real. You people behind the scenes, the three of us, we met each other at a CPI Chicago, and I went up to Nick afterward. Do what?
Can we say CPI? You won't get canceled.
Oh, I'm not. I'm just gonna lean in. You know, we met and we went out to eat dinner afterwards. Denny's late at night. And these two gentlemen rode in my beat up 2005 Mazda with some McDonald's in the floor, I believe. Johnny fit in between my two car seats back there, and Nick was up front, and we went and ate some pancakes.
That was true. There were toys everywhere.
So humble beginnings, and I think we got big things going in the future. That's what we're doing right here. We're building it up. But we should go back to the Nader thing, because Nader said just the slightest little bit of pressure on these politicians and it just busts wide open, and you guys are showing that. So you want to show that other video you sent me, Johnny, and we can go from there? Let's check that out. I haven't seen this one.
The one of just my face?
Yeah. Let's check it out.
All right, check it out.
Joe Biden!
Here,
Joe Biden, these nukes will kill us! Joe Biden, stop this war! Putin wants to talk, Joe. Why won't you talk to him? Why won't you talk to Putin, Joe? I'm sorry, but he needs to do diplomacy before these nukes kill us all.
Awesome, dude. I love that.
Tyler, play the YouTube that I just sent in the chat.
Okay.
Where
let's pull it up.
Where you can see Biden chiding me, pretending like it doesn't bother him.
All right.
Let the man sing.
Oh, it looks like I've already watched this one. So, is this a time-stamped one?
Yeah, it's time-stamped to write.
Okay, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to go back just a little bit.
And then I sent you a link to an article that Reuters dropped the very next day. So
that's awesome.
There's a connection.
Okay, this one.
I brought that up with Jimmy, was that they're finally starting now about potentially having some kind of dialogue.
Well, that's good. That's what we want. Let's check us out. Let's
Having an impact.
let's wash mashed potatoes here. Oh, I'll turn it up a little bit.
President sent Hoover, sent Herbert Hoover. I tell you what, let him sing. Let the man sing. Look. That's a. Hey, look. He was the first president since Herbert Hoover to lose jobs over the course of.
So now he gets back on track with his.
I want to watch it one more time, though.
We lost. Says sir. He was the first president since Herbert Hoover.
You can hear me go, talk to Putin, Joe.
Let him sing. Let the man sing. Look.
Oh man. Well, I asked Johnny before, Nick, but I was curious about your take too. Like, I see you guys do this incredibly courageous stuff. Are you nervous before you do it?
Years ago I would have been, but now, I mean, I just think they need to be confronted. And so, no, I look forward. Yeah. I'm excited to confront them and have them hear it. It's like, I said this to Jimmy too. They shut down the House and Senate offices. It used to be you could go in there, protesters would go in there, they'd deliver stuff or petitions or whatever, disrupt committee hearings. But they shut it all down. They use COVID as the pretext. Nobody can go in there anymore. So it's just like another way that they've walled themselves off. They don't listen to constituent phone calls, emails. They don't even open their offices to constituents anymore. And so we got to get in their face wherever we can. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm stoked for it.
So here's the article. Let's see. I think I got both sides of the screen on. Bear with me. I need to do just one tab. That's what I need to do. The tab. And it is right here. So this is the article they wrote about the event, huh?
It wasn't about the event, but it's indicating.
Oh, it's indicating that they're starting to respond.
Yeah.
Do they talk at all about the protests? No.
They never credit activists.
Of course not.
That's how it works. They always swoop in at the last minute and take credit, but they never, because of movement pressure, but they never credit activists.
Yeah. But this is indicative, we haven't seen anything really like this from the deep state of Reuters until you guys got out there and made some noise, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a coincidence.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
And, we're sort of being facetious. I mean, obviously the fight is far from over. You have to keep putting pressure on these people. Just have to. I mean, this war is not showing any sign of slowing down or stopping. And still have boots on the ground, still have bombers in the area. So it's definitely still a hair trigger situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I thought we might watch the Jimmy one real quick, Nick, because that was the big deal, right? That's the one that got to me. And I've got some props I got off the bookshelf over here. After we digest this, we can talk about it.
Cool.
All right. So we got this here. And so this is the clip. Let's check it out.
I'm here with Americans comedian Kurt Metzger. We're joined by Nick Brana, the founder and national director of the People's Party, a rapidly growing movement for the new progressive political party in America. Nick was formerly the national political outreach coordinator with Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign.
Nick, you've achieved
and then
my
became a founding member
dream
and first electoral manager for our revolution.
Many times, so
that's who this guy is. That's who Nick Brana is. And so
our boy.
first of all, welcome, Nick. Welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Hey, Jimmy.
And so Nick, because he used to work side by side with Bernie Sanders, what a better person to confront Bernie Sanders over his support of war. And Bernie has become a complete simp for a war machine, and he won't say anything. And so now people are actually going to protest Bernie Sanders because Bernie Sanders is the empire. He's the one supporting imperialism. 100% with all the strength he has as one of the 50 most powerful people in the world. Bernie is using his power to push for nuclear war. That's what he's doing.
And you thought he was weak.
And you thought Bernie Sanders didn't have the balls to stand up.
Comment. And you thought he was
So
weak.
here you are.
Kurt is awesome.
You went to confront Bernie Sanders over
he's
arming
strong.
Nazis. Where was this, Nick? Where was he giving a speech?
This was in Pittsburgh on Sunday.
Okay, so here's what happened.
This election is about our economy.
Bernie, you're leading us to nuclear war! Bernie, you're going to start a nuclear war!
To billionaires and then cut some.
I like how the people go, shut up with your nuclear war.
Is that going to end racism?
Social Security.
Why are you funding this war in Ukraine, Bernie? You can stop it!
Some
I love
way
you guys are doing this
disagree.
together.
We
Bernie,
think
you
that
know we
billionaires should
overthrew the
start
government of
paying
Ukraine in
their fair share
2014.
of taxes.
This
not
is
cutting.
pointless if we have a nuclear war, Bernie. You will kill
We
us
think
all!
we should raise the minimum wage to a living
Stop
wage.
funding this war! Stop
We
funding this
think
war,
we should make
Bernie!
it easy
We
to
trusted you! You were supposed to lead a revolution! You're leading us to annihilation in Ukraine!
We are taking on people who have unlimited amounts of money.
But
They
Bernie,
got the money.
where
Excuse
is
me,
our money
they got
going?
The money.
you're sending
We
money
have
to
the power.
Nazis
We're not
in
gonna
Ukraine.
let
Such
people-
balls.
Excuse me. We're not going to let people disrupt our meetings. So
Why did you oppose the letter
where we are right
progressives
now
on sending money?
is in this moment.
You're starting a
Standing
nuclear
up
war
to
with
the
Russia,
billionaire
Bernie.
class, the billionaire class.
You were supposed to start a political revolution.
So that's not really how Trumpers react to protesters, but that's how
Yeah, right.
that's how Bernie Sanders supporters are reacting now. That people who are left, people who still don't willfully want to see what Bernie Sanders actually is, which is a simp for empire and Wall Street and the military-industrial complex. That's what Bernie actually is. He's not actually a fighter for progressives. He's not actually a revolutionary. Bernie is a willing tool of empire, imperialism, Wall Street, and a military-industrial complex. That's who Bernie actually is. And I know it's hard to believe that, but that's who he is, which is why he's being protested and why people are reacting like Trumpers at a Trump rally against actual lefties who are standing up against nuclear war. You think Bernie would stand up against nuclear war, and then you remember Bernie's been for every freaking illegal intervention.
Who is still standing around listening to Bernie that isn't utterly disappointed with him? And
So these are just regular Democrats who now they welcome Bernie because
he's
Bernie's
Liz Cheneying for
yeah.
Democrats.
So it's like, oh, he's going to say something nice about my corporate Democrat. I'll like Bernie. That's what this is.
Oh, I see.
Okay, there's more to this.
Instead, you're sending money.
And telling the people
You're
of
starting
Pennsylvania,
a third
the
world
people
war,
of this
Bernie.
country.
Why are you voting to fund a nuclear war, Bernie? Why are you voting to fund a nuclear war, Bernie? Can you answer our question?
Let me ask you a question.
Why?
Who's paying you?
No.
So Bernie comes over to an
All right. I mean, we got Jimmy's commentary. Let's do our commentary. Who's paying you? Now, I still teach high school, so I can't say the things on stream that I want to say, right? But I you know, people know who you guys are. You're in the video. Me, let me just show you what. Okay. Who's paying you, Bernie Sanders? Here's one, right? Let's keep going. Let's see. Here's all the other ones, Bernie. Here's your other book, right? I bought that one. Here's another one I got. There's that one.
I still have so
And,
much of his stuff too.
Yeah, it's just it goes on. I even duck. I really wanted to learn. I found these old ones of when he was mayor of Burlington. I read these too. Right?
That's
And
different.
I think the last one to show is this is the big question, right? That's the big question. Now, if you guys haven't read this one, I would highly recommend you to flip through it, and you will hear from the DNC's own lawyer saying you can do whatever you want in the primary, but at the end of the day, we are a private corporation, and we're going to pick whoever the hell we want for our candidate. But thank you for the money. Have a nice life. And I gave Bernie, I think I made 1,000 phone calls for Bernie. I think I gave him probably $3,000. I knocked on like 100 doors for him in rural Missouri. Some of them I thought for sure I'd get, a shotgun to the gut. And then what do you do at the end of the day, Bernie? You tell me to vote for Hillary Clinton. You tell me to vote for Joe Biden. And now you're sending billions of dollars to NAZIs in the Ukraine. What are your thoughts on that?
I have Bernie's book downstairs. It's called Where Do We Go From Here?
I'll tell you where I went from here. Can I keep going with the book thing? Luckily, I have some other books of people that don't chicken out, Bernie. Here's one guy that goes all the way. Here's one guy that lives in a cave. Luckily, I started reading up on all the lies I was told about this, Bernie. They called you this, so I just figured I'd learn what the real ones did, And here's a guy I learned a lot from. Mr. Richard Wolff. Mr. Richard Wolff. And finally, I'm still a proud member of CPI because this guy has taught me so much, I can't even begin to describe how much he's taught me. Okay? I listened to a lot of it. I told you when we were hanging out. There you go. I told you, Nick, when we were hanging out in Chicago, you mentioned someone else for me to listen to, and I was like, those guys are great, but where I'm at in my walk right now is I need somebody that teaches me something. And this guy, you say whatever you want about him, he's one hell of a teacher, one hell of a teacher. You can say what you want. You debate him on real socialism, good luck.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest voices of our generation for socialism and communism.
Absolutely.
And just the depth of Caleb's historical knowledge is always something that makes it, so great to talk to him and learn from him.
He's got this in the background too. This really informs my life. What would this guy have to say about what you're doing, Bernie Sanders?
Bernie still has a portrait of Eugene Debs. He says Eugene Debs is like his hero. He's got a portrait in his Senate office of him. But Eugene Debs was a socialist who went to prison and ran for president, from prison for opposing war, the First World War, when it wasn't even popular among socialists. And so, the idea that Bernie Sanders, would hold that man in reverence, and yet be the antithesis of that person in his position. Bernie's particularly pathetic because he's at the end of his career. He like the careerism argument.
1 foot in the grave.
Right. He was the budget chair. He is the budget chair. Although Democrats probably going to lose the Senate now. He had the 50th vote. So just like Joe Manchin was vetoing everything because he had the 50th vote. Well, so did Bernie on the other side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why wasn't he vetoing all the corporate shit and being like, nope, not going to do that. Not going to do that. Unless we get a $15 minimum wage, unless we get Medicare for all. But he's just he's the most pathetic. He doesn't take the corporate money, but he still does their bidding.
Yeah, Manchin can veto Build Back Better. He can veto climate legislation. Manchin can veto. The parliamentarian can veto $15 minimum wage. Bernie Sanders cannot veto $70 billion for Nazis and starting a nuclear war. That's where with the Democrats.
Why? I want to know why. Are you just a chicken? Like, the only way I can let you off the hook is like you're worried about your grandkids have been threatened by some intelligence agency or something. I don't even think that's it, though. I think he's just one of them. I don't think it goes much deeper than that, you know?
I think you're right. I think he's just one of them, too. And to do anything else is, frankly, to give him too much credit.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, oh, he had to be threatened into this position. No, he didn't. He's just a fucking sellout.
He's a sellout. I mean, Jenny says it here. He has nothing to lose. And so
why don't you
doing?
Give us a political revolution? Why don't you give us a major third party? Why don't you do any of this? At the end of your life, this is your last Senate term. Literally, there's nothing else. What are you gonna, he wants to run for president. What are you gonna run on again? When his team put out that announcement that he was thinking of running for president again, in the same announcement, he was talking about how he supports everything that Joe Biden's a great president, support everything he's doing. So it's like, so what are you going to run on? What do you stand for, like, at all?
You know, I don't think we can discount the threats, you know, to his life, safety, well-being, family, so on and so forth. I mean, Chuck Schumer himself said about Trump and the security complex, these guys have 6 ways from Sunday of getting to you, so on and so forth. So I don't think we can discount it, but, you know, if we want peace on this earth, it's going to take people who are willing to stand up to that. And nobody's in a better position to do it than Bernie. He has millions of social media followers on YouTube, on Twitter, on his email list. I mean, he has a zillion different channels to gain support. Everybody has his back. He built, you know, a 6-year huge movement across every class, race, age group of people in the United States and across the world. And, you know, he didn't do anything with it. So at the end of the day, it's kind of pathetic. Yeah.
No, and I mean, at a certain point, I mean, this guy's second wife was shot in the head. Did he stop? No.
Yeah.
This guy was nailed to a cross.
Did he stop? No.
Did he stop? No. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And Jenny said it too. It's not like, look at that. He did. And I thought about it. And I work at Walmart. I mean, go ahead, call HR. I'd love to get fired for this. That'd be hilarious. But imagine Bernie had his huge movement. There were like 10 million of us that were rabid, right? You had the support of Chapo Trap House, the most like big podcast with rabid fans. You could have organized Walmart, Bernie, easily.
Could have done anything.
You could have done anything you wanted.
He could be doing it right now. Could you imagine how different the political situation in this country would be if Bernie Sanders, 2-time runner-up in the Democratic Party for president, was banding together with the squad, and they were using their tens of millions of social media reach across multiple platforms, you know, and they were using their mainstream, you know, their mainstream media access, and they were rallying against the war, rallying for Medicare for all, you know, rallying for a $25 minimum wage, you know, like, I mean, it would just be, it would be a completely different political scene. If they were just doing that, that would be worth a hell of a lot more than anything, any vote they're casting, anything they're doing in office, you know. But fundamentally, that's not their theory of change. They told me themselves. Like, I spoke to them directly last year when they briefly occupied the steps of Congress when the eviction moratorium was lifted. And so I spoke with Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Cori Bush on the step. We spoke for about 45 minutes. It's an intense conversation. And they straight out said, we teased it out. They don't share our theory of change. They believe in the inside track theory of change where, you know, you befriend the politician.
Yeah. Where you send 50 billion to Nazis in the Ukraine, that theory of change.
The nothing will fundamentally change theory of change.
Yes. Well, the careerism theory of change.
Yeah, the cover of Vogue theory of change.
My pocketbook will change, but your situation will maybe change a little bit.
Well, I mean, what can I say? I don't know if you guys see where I'm at, but this is my children's playroom that Putin paid for. I mean, it's beautiful. This is haven't got that ring light yet, Nick. It's just a shadeless light over, but it's very high quality. And well, I have another thing that I would like to I think it would be good to bring it back, because my whole thing when I was supporting Bernie with my whole heart and soul, because I go, well, in my mind, I need to feel like I exhausted the inside theory of change, where we get our man in the blue party in there. I need to exhaust it before I realize that Marx was right, Lenin was right, and with this amount of power in this country, you're going to have people that are willing to get killed by the deep state to change things. Okay? And maybe I'm just crazy. I was raised in a Baptist church. Like, it's a real easy fit for me. If you're going to be a real Christian, that's just part of the game. Okay? So I don't have a whole lot of respect for people that aren't. I knew Nick was a real one from the beginning, because I don't know. You can just tell. That's why I don't pay a whole lot of attention to people like talking crap on the internet. I can just see your heart, and I can tell, oh, that guy's for real. And then, okay, I got his back no matter what. So let's it's interesting though, from learning from Caleb and from other people and from digging into it, but I will give Bernie that. Richard Wolff says that he opened up the door for people to look into what socialism really is. And they asked, I heard Caleb said this once I think it was at CPI Kansas, but he was quoting Sherwood Anderson, who wrote Winesburg, Ohio. And he said, people ask me what's the difference between a socialist and a communist. And he said, the communists mean it. And old Jay Stalin said that social democracy is the left wing of fascism. And Norman knows that history. If we go back to Germany, he'll explain it here. That we've lived through all this before. And if you know this history, we're just kind of watching it repeat itself. But I think if you know it, we can make a lot smarter decisions. Let's listen to this.
Like, you may recall, you won't recall because it's not your generation, but Rosa Luxemburg was famous for her statement in August 4, 1914. The German Social Democratic Party, of which she was a member, they voted for war credits to the German government to begin World War I. So they voted basically what Bernie and the squad did, voted to give money to the government to fight a war which, as communists, they opposed. It was an imperialist war. They're not taking sides and so forth. And she famously said, on August 4, 1914, German social democracy turned into a rotting corpse. If you are in front of your Google, just put up Rosa Luxemburg, rotting corpse, 1914. It was a famous line by her, which all of my generation of leftists, we all knew it. And I thought to myself, you know what? The day the squad and Bernie voted for war credits for the Ukraine, that whole enterprise called, the progressive, turned into a rotting corpse. And the whole job of leftists, as they understood it back then, the whole job of the left, if you're a member of a political party, is to constantly point out the conflict of interest, what they call contradictions, but we can leave that aside, the conflict of interest between the ruling elite, the capitalist class, and yourself, to constantly point out their interests are not your interests. Their interests are not your interests. Don't be fooled. And for them, the hallmark of what you call class consciousness the hallmark of class consciousness was seeing that fundamental conflict and cleavage between you, your class, your interests, and the ruling class. Now, let me be clear. That's exactly what Bernie did. He knew, he internalized, it was in his bone and in his blood, that tradition. And that's why day in and day out, and day in and day out, in both of his campaigns, he kept talking about there are a bunch of crooks. There are a bunch of crooks. Big Pharma, bunch of crooks. And he did exactly what an old-time socialist would have done. Class consciousness. Their interests are not your interests. He kept going on television. Could you imagine if you were in Goldman Sachs and you heard this guy on national television saying Goldman Sachs a bunch of crooks? He did exactly what he was supposed to do. But then what happened? When it came to the foreign policy, all of a sudden, the bunch of crooks became a band of angels. The bunch of crooks metamorphosed into a band of angels. You're telling me the same people who are cheating you day in and day out, stealing your wealth, stealing your labor, the same people are suddenly heartbroken by what's happening to the Ukrainian people? Are you telling me that? They're suddenly so concerned about the Ukrainian people? That guy Circione, is that how you pronounce his name?
Joe Cirincione, yeah.
Cirincione?
Yeah.
He suddenly cares about 500 children who were quote unquote kidnapped. There are 1 million children in a concentration camp in Gaza and have been there for 15 years. And no concern about them, but 500 children in the Ukraine. So to me, when I read Rosa or I read Trotsky, who I've also spent a lot of time rereading, all of this is from my youth and I'm revisiting it on the verge of my death, naturally. The same people you're suddenly telling me, it's such a betrayal. It's such a betrayal of everything Bernie stood for domestically to now suddenly sell these people as concerned about the fate of the people of Ukraine. Can anyone possibly believe that? Nancy Pelosi? Did you read Obama's tweet? We should vote for Democrats who look like us and represent us. Oh yeah, Nancy Pelosi, yes. I live in exactly the same house on the East Coast that she lives on the West Coast. I hang out with exactly the same people. Yes, that's my community. I recognize it. She spent more on her facelifts than I have earned in my entire life. That's a fact. And I'll show you my Social Security. You know, if you get where at a certain point, they give you all your earnings for every day since you began work. And you total it, and I can assure you not get so much, but if you total it, you won't get the same total as her facelift. And you're
oh man. What's so funny to me about Norm Finkelstein is if you guys don't know Norman Finkelstein, boy, you've got a YouTube rabbit hole to go down. Like, he tore apart Jeffrey Epstein's friend Alan Dershowitz's book on Israel. He wrote some book on Israel about how there wasn't anyone in Israel when Israel went there, and the people only came afterwards. It was 1,800 footnotes. Norman went through every single footnote and proved that the guy was just a total complete fraud. I believe they still let him be Harvard law professor or whatever. But it's funny. Norman's like, no, he's Mr. Detail. He's like, I'll prove to you with data that Nancy Pelosi spends more on her facelifts than I've ever been paid. It's just...
Oh, and when you bring ice cream expenditures into the mix.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, it's definitely my yearly salary. Absolutely.
But isn't it kind of interesting that if you know the history of the communist movement in Germany, right before right before old Mr. Mustache arrived, they were going through this exact same thing.
No, and to be honest, I've been finding out about all this very recently. I read particularly an amazing book by R. Palm Dutt. It's called Fascism and Social Revolution. Absolutely mandatory reading. It was written in 1935, and it's one of those books that seems like it could have been written today. And he's describing the, descent into fascism in Italy and then Germany and then Austria. And I'm reading this, I'm like, wait a minute. The parties are literally called the Social Democrats?
Mm-hmm.
Man, history rhymes.
Yeah.
How did we all fall for this again? Unreal.
Yeah. Chris Hedges talks about it a lot too, about how the liberal class always betrays the working class in the end and sides with fascism when it has to choose between fascism and socialism or communism. It always betrays the working class, always ends up siding with fascism.
Mm-hmm. I just want to show the book. You can find it on Archive. The whole thing's there. But yeah, it does. It collapses. Like little things like that when they were explained to me, that when capitalism will collapse, when it collapses, which it always will, it goes left and right. And that's really what Dutt explains in this book, is that fascism is a reaction to an impending communist revolution of the people. Exactly. If you need to use the scary C word, right? It doesn't come up. That's why the whole idea that like Trump is a fascist is ridiculous, because we're not on the verge of a commie revolution in America, not at the present time. And they pop up, I was teaching drama today, and I'm going through the top 100 drama plays, and it was I can't remember the exact name of it, but it was like Three Penny something was the name of the play.
Right, Three Penny Opera.
Yes, yeah, it came out in 1931 in the Weimar Republic, and we watched a little bit of it in class, and I was like, it starts out a guy's on a street corner just preaching to all these Germans, just straight socialism. And I thought, this is 1931. What happened just a year or two afterward? So that's what's going on. But the center cannot hold. And I think we're really dangling on the edge of that right now. From what I've learned from trading the markets and reading about how the markets work, the things that will go first are the speculative stocks. And we have seen Bitcoin in the past few days just start to really crap the bed. And, I think that's kind of what we're going to start seeing over the next year or two, is just one sector is going to go. And then 6 months later, another one's going to go. And the things we're talking about are going to start sounding a lot sweeter to people.
What do you mean as far as like the sectors that are going to go, like different cryptocurrencies, or
I think,
what do you mean?
And no one can tell the future, but this is in the past couple days, this one has broken below the cloud. It went down 9%, and then it went down 14%. If we look at where's the one that really went, it was FTT. This exchange is bankrupt. It went down 75% on Tuesday. And another one called Luna. So they're just it's that old Buffett quote that when the tide goes out, you see who wasn't wearing any pants. And that's what's going. So I think
is that Warren Buffett or Jimmy Buffett?
That's Warren. Jimmy probably said something similar, but he was in Margaritaville. So, but yeah, I think you'll see the crypto start to go, and then there'll be something else. I mean, in 2008, it was housing. I've heard Richard Wolff talk a lot about how much debt there is in auto loans. we've already kind of had it, I feel like, with student debt. They just said, yeah, you guys don't have to pay that for a couple of years. Or
student debt, yes, seems like a house of cards. I know the LaRouches sum it up like this. We have $31 trillion of, US dollar, like fundamental assets, treasury bonds in the world, $31 trillion. But when you multiply that by all the, other derivative schemes, this, that, and the other, way above my pay grade, apparently comes out to like 1.7 quadrillion. An insane amount of money that's just waiting to collapse. And they say if 5 or 10% of it starts to go, that's it. Tyler, I'm wondering, do you have any good reading material about the Weimar Republic and maybe some of those financial points?
On the Weimar Republic, not so much. I wish our boy Caleb was here, because he would talk for literally like 17 hours on that one question that you just asked, and which is why I keep listening to him and will until he quits teaching me things, which he has not. His stream the other day taught me that that there's a bunch of pockets of Christians in North Korea, and that the Mennonites actually have an outreach to North Korea. And I was like, this is why I listen to this guy, because I just learn all kinds of stuff. As far as trading the markets, learning how the markets work, like I wanted to know how a trader thought about the market, because I felt like as a Marxist, it would help me understand where the motivation is, really in this economy. And there's one, I think it's by Murphy, Technical Analysis of the Markets. There's a great one that I really like called Market Wizards. The name of the guy, came out in like mid 80s, but it's like 12 interviews with legendary traders. And that really helped me wrap my mind around the thinking of, it's all about there. Michael Hudson says it. There's no interest in how actually an economy works. There's no interest in like taking care of like, where are we going to get our energy from? There's no interest in like, well, how are we going to move things from New York to California? There's no interest in like, well, how can we make sure our population has good jobs so they don't rise up and cut our heads off? There's none of that. It is all, how can we privatize this, put it on the market, get in early, get out at the top. We can short sell it on the way down, collapse everything, wait till it's at the rock bottom. Now we got all this cash. We do it again. If we can take over the Federal Reserve, we can literally have them print money and give it to us, and we'll just ride this roller coaster. We'll ride the roller coaster. And as long as you can cash out of your Robinhood account and go buy a gallon of milk with it, it's real. It's not real, but it's real. And once you understand that's what they're doing, and then you see that China and Russia are doing the opposite, right? Like, China shut down Bitcoin speculation. Russia's kind of in between. And I'm a guy that's very much into it, but I was like, oh boy. Especially in February, Russia called the bluff. It's like, hey, Europe, you want some oil and some gas? And then it got real. And it's like, the West is a speculative madness. It's all making money on the stock market. And China and Russia, the two old readers of Karl Marx, are patting the imperialists on the head and saying it comes down to land and energy. It ultimately comes down to land, because that's where the energy is. But
like Putin said in that speech when they welcomed the 4 new republics into Russia, you can't heat your house with printed money. You can't,
he did say that.
You can't eat paper dollars. That's absolutely true. It sounds funny. It sounds obvious, but it's something we seem to have forgotten in the West.
Well, I feel bad for Europe, because they don't have any energy, from what I understand. They don't grow their own food. They don't have any oil there. I heard Garland Nixon on the Duran today say that's what's really happening is we're crushing Europe to bring those jobs back here. We can't bring them back from China because they're you know, they're an actual economy that is steeped in the teachings of Marx, and they know where real value comes from. And so we can do that to Europe, though. And I'm hopeful for, I feel bad for Europe. I don't want it to happen to them. But in America, the thing is, we got lots of oil. We got lots of energy. If we did have a revolution here and take back our government from these speculative crazy people, we'd be fine. You know, we can restart this thing. It's just this speculative madness has to end. And I'm pretty confident when gas costs $15 a gallon, it will start to end. And I always have in the back of my head, Nick, every time I watch you or someone else online, I always want to ask those questions that make people uncomfortable. I don't want to ask you about them, and I don't think there's any sense in asking them. But, you know, at a certain point when you can't feed your kids, you start looking for who put me in this situation. And that was a big learning thing for me, learning communism early on. Like, I always thought it was this violence, like just choose violence immediately. That's not what they did. They went over the entire population, and then the entire population's like, hey, let's have a government that gives us like peace, land, and bread. And then they're like, okay, cool. Usually they get the military on board and they're like, yeah, let's do that. Let's help people. And then you get this weird reaction. Like, they're like, over our dead bodies, are you going to have a government like that? And then the revolution has to defend itself. If it doesn't defend itself, it ends up like the Paris Commune in 1871, and everybody gets slaughtered. And that was the big thing that really took anarchism off the table for me. Like, I mean, you might not like the state, but the other side's perfectly fine with using it to crush you and take your life away.
The only institution, you know, that is supposed to speak for the people. Private corporations are not, you know, they're not supposed to speak for the people. They're not supposed to be democratically controlled as they exist. They could be structured that way, and they should be. But, you know, it's so clear that you have to take government power because that's supposed to be the authority in a country, and the only authority that counterbalances private power, that counterbalances corporate power, that counterbalances, you know, the wealth that's been accumulated in this system. So of course that's, you know, I mean, it seems obvious to me, and I think that the historical record bears it out, like you were saying, Tyler, that you know, you have to take government power, you have to take state power in order to change anything.
Absolutely. I mean, we can't do anything by ourselves. And, you know, the theory, as I understand it, is that not only can you not work with fascists, you can't work with anarchists. Because, you know, the anarchists will basically give way to fascism. They will sell you out and are not reliable. So
well, Nick, I don't, you know, I totally agree with you. Nick is an open tent. He's a big umbrella, right? We got Republicans, we got disenfranchised. I love what you're doing, Nick. It's very necessary.
As the People's Party, that's necessary because there's no way that you're going to build a broad coalition of people by being sectarian in the United States or by leading with ideology. You got to lead with policy. You got to lead with economic populism. You got to lead with what matters to people, you know, like in their lives, you know. If you want to go argue over like terminology with them, you can do, you know, people have been doing that for decades. It gets you fucking nowhere, you know, and, you know, and then working people aren't going to trust you anyways. Like what the fuck, you're having this academic conversation or fighting over this term. You know, meanwhile, I don't have food to eat. I'm working 2-3 jobs. I'm selling my fucking blood or organs to, to money. Like, yeah, of course. I mean, that's what you have to do, in this country.
That was a big realization for me, and Caleb taught me that. But it was like in the Soviet Union, the campaign, the slogan, it wasn't like kill all the rich people. That wasn't the slogan. The slogan was peace. I'll get you out of World War I. You ain't gotta die in the stupid war. You know it's stupid. That was number one. Peace. Number two, he said, we'll give you a little bit of land. Haven't you always wanted to have your own home? Haven't you always wanted to have your own little farm? We'll get that for you. And third, you're a little hungry? We'll give you some bread. And that was the slogan. Peace, land, and bread. And it was very popular, even with the military.
So you're saying the winning message was not, I'm not the other guy, and democracy's on the ballot, and tax the rich. That wasn't the winning message.
Yeah, I'm not the czar. No, it's they appealed to people's material needs: peace, land, and bread. There's a great clip of of Mao after the revolution. It's just Mao land reform. And they have the peasants vote on what to do with the landlords. It was all like the peasants. Like he talks about it. Like the peasants want to do this. I'm not telling them what to do. It's that famous quote of his, like, we can stand in front of them and be crushed, because they were sick of it. They were sick of 200 years of opium being pumped into China. And they were sick of their landlords exploiting them. And, he said we can either get in front of this, or you can just see it. I won't show you this whole video, but I'll show you a clip or two. Like seeing things like this historically just kind of cracked my mind. I was like, oh, that's nothing like what I've been told. So
as the revolutionary program began, the peasants were the first to benefit. They were granted the land reform they'd wanted for so long. It was the party's plan that they should seem to make the change themselves. Speak bitterness meetings were held in which the landlords and others linked to the defeated nationalists were
Bill
confronted
Gates.
and denounced by the peasants.
I won't show. They got to vote on what to do with Bill Gates. I'll skip that part. So, but I do want you to see later on that how happy they are. They literally get out a stick, and they measure this land. At long last, they are their own masters. Here's his land deeds, and they measure it out. They get out pieces of rope. You get your own farm, brother. Congratulations. So, that's interesting. That's interesting, isn't it? To see that.
That's beautiful. What channel was that?
I don't know. I just found it once when I was searching for Jeff Jones. Jeff Jones, it's his channel, but it's just Communist China's land reform.
It's hard to find good stuff about China on YouTube, I'll tell you.
It's really hard.
It's like every day just a wall of China's about to collapse. 8 more days, China's economy falls to the floor. 3 days till Xi Jinping gets arrested.
I mean, it's just amazing to me that, like, to watch a clip like that and then to realize that between 1949 and 2022, they're about to eat America's lunch, right? They went back to the basics. They went back to the land, and they fixed that problem. They didn't let Bill Gates buy 500,000 acres of farmland. Well, he had before with the British's help, but that was over. You know, now y'all get your 40 acres and a mule, which I think is really popular in the black community for some reason. But you know, they built it from the bottom up to help everybody, you know. And I think with China they really squared the circle, because with the Soviets they tried to keep everything government controlled, and the Chinese figured it out that no, you know, somebody's going to want to make video games, somebody's going to want to make Nikes, and so we'll have a market sector for that. You can go get rich over there, but you will never take over the things people need to survive. You'll never take over international transportation. You'll never take over the natural resources. You'll never take over the healthcare industry. You'll never take over education. You'll never take over the military and the companies that produce our weapons. You will never do that. Go over there, make Nikes, and get rich, Jack Ma. But you will never come over here and set up a Raytheon or a McDonnell Douglas or a Boeing. We got a prison cell for you if you try.
No, I heard it explained really beautifully recently, just yesterday or the other day. The reason the Soviet Union stagnated and collapsed was because all the self-seeking people who just wanted to get wealthy were moving into the bureaucracy, where they were in charge of administrating these important programs. But that's where they could go because they could, you know, take a little bit more for themselves. So what it seems like China has realized is that they can use a capital profit-driven sector to attract those people who are going to be, you know, tempted by those sorts of wants, keep them out of the bureaucracy, keep them out of the state administrative sector, so that remains communist for the people. And they can do that and, you know, continue to attract foreign investment, you know, build good products and a good sector like that, which I thought was definitely interesting.
Lumpy has got some good points here. She's thanking you guys for stepping up.
Hey,
Lumpy is the real deal. Everybody in here is the real deal. But Lumpy, she's somebody that'll go to the cross for you. And she's wanting to know, do you have a Patreon, or do you do everything through your website?
We don't have a Patreon, but we have a donate button on the website.
Okay. Is that better because you don't get fees or whatever? Is that?
Yeah.
I figured. Now, what was your role exactly again in Bernie's campaign?
A national political outreach coordinator.
Damn.
I worked with the superdelegates, tried to win their support to him.
I can't believe I'm talking to you from my rural Missouri playroom that Putin paid for. But I'll just tell all you guys, both these guys are incredible. But when I met Nick at CPI Chicago, I mean, it was like going up and talking to a hero, and he was so kind to me, so humble. He's the real deal. So if anybody's ever got a problem with Nick, they got a problem with me.
No, well, talking to you, man, I could tell I met a kindred spirit right away. You know,
well, I hope
gone through so much of the same journey, you know, that I have, and I know Johnny has too. Yeah.
Gentlemen, I got to get going. I have a little educational event that I'm late for, but I just want to say this was an extremely based stream up till now. I'm going to watch the rest of it later. I expect it'll get even better.
Cool.
CPI Chicago was definitely amazing. So glad I met you two there. Peace,
Amen.
Peace, land, and bread.
Peace, land, and bread, comrade.
In the chat.
The real deal. I love you, buddy. I hope we're friends for a long time.
We're just getting started.
We're just getting started.
Watching that short clip about China, I mean, can you imagine what the United States of America could be capable of, you know,
man,
50, 100 years from now?
I tell you, and I think people will be willing to fight with. I mean, if you look at history, I don't want to keep you on here, Johnny, but if you look at history, like I read the Grapes of Wrath every year in class. If you just read chapter 12 of the Grapes of Wrath, he quotes Marx, Thomas Paine, who wrote Agrarian Justice in 1794. Paine knew that this land problem in America needed to be fixed. One of our founding fathers. And after the revolution, We'll take that land speculator George Washington off the dollar bill, and we'll put Thomas Paine on there. That's what I say. So you can take off on that one, Johnny Blaze.
That's amazing.
Go
Beautiful.
visit that Thomas Paine monument in D.C.
All right. I'm going to bring the pain.
We got to build. Bye, buddy.
Yeah,
Take
Johnny.
care. See ya. Nick, are you going to go? You live in D.C., right?
Yeah, I got another few minutes. I got like another 10 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you just hang out as long as you want, and when you're ready to leave, you go ahead and take off, okay? Because
Cool.
I'm in the presence of great. I mean, I'm talking to a star, you know. This is like
Wow.
having Michael Jordan on stream. I'm not going to be the first one to leave. Although maybe I should be gracious and be like, you know what, Nick. So I'll do that. We'll set a timer. And once we're at 1 hour and 20 minutes, you're going to take off and set the night alive. All right?
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Yeah, I can't wait till we have another conference or something, another chance to get together though.
Yeah, for sure. There's some talk. There's some talk in the about something in the spring, maybe. Tyler is starstruck. You're right. You're right, Jenny. I'm trying to push through. But you know, here I pulled up one other thing I wanted to show you.
Cool.
Whitney Webb was on Glenn Beck's show, and Glenn Beck starts out this interview by saying Whitney Webb is the most important person he's ever interviewed in his entire career, which Whitney Webb was like instrumental in the Jeffrey Epstein coverage. But I was just watching this before you got on stream, and yes, that is true, Jenny. CPI is back up and running. As soon as I get my next paycheck, come on, Mr. Putin, I'm going to sign back up. Whitney is cool. So yeah. But yeah, it clicked, and I thought of you, Nick, and well, I'll just show you. I'll show you here real quick. Pull up this tab. How elites will create a new class of slaves. I was like, I'll click on this. That's Whitney Webb. So here we go at the very beginning. And I need a new computer, y'all. I'm on this 10-year-old MacBook Pro. So if you want to help me out, the old Patreon buy me a coffee is in the description. But all right, here we go.
Welcome. I am a huge fan of your work. You have covered some of the most important stories, I think, in my lifetime.
Wow, thank you.
And you are so clear on all of them. And most of these stories are the ones you can't get answers on. They're all the stories that the big and powerful want to hide, want you to not see what's really going on. And it's so frustrating because it's clear that these things are happening and should be discussed. Are you worried ever about your safety?
No. And the reason I say that is because I think, a lot of what we're facing is an energetic and spiritual battle, I guess you could say. And I think in order, if you're afraid of these people, you're giving them power over you. And I think really the only way to win this is to have your commitment to, what you're fighting for, the good about humanity, to be total. Right. So
wow, good for you. How old are you?
33.
You write and think and speak like you're 80 and very wise.
Thank you.
You must have good parents.
So I'm going to go back and watch the rest of that, but it reminded me of you and Johnny and me too. I feel it inside. And I as a Christian, I feel that fear is Satan. And it helps color my worldview that the Satanists are running the world right now, but they mainly control the world through our fear. The moment we stand up and say, why are you sending $50 billion to Nazis in the Ukraine? That fear starts to lose its hold. What do you think about that, Nick?
Yeah, I think that much more effective than any kind of like control system, propaganda system that the establishment has to keep people in check is the kind of isolation and the unwillingness to really share one's own genuine, authentic perspectives and beliefs that that things aren't working as they should be. Like, to go back to Bernie, for example, I really think that that's really what he did. Like, it showed that the polls taken before Bernie came around and then after Bernie came around, it showed that there were already huge numbers of people that were really supportive of, like a single payer, Medicare for all system and breaking up the big banks and, getting rid of like too big to fail, too big to jail, ending the wars, that kind of thing. The stuff he stood for back then, he didn't really necessarily change people's mind on that. Instead, he gave people the confidence to express that vocally because, he showed, oh, wow, I'm not alone. I'm not crazy in that view. Rather, there's like thousands, millions of people out there in this country. It's even a majority view. There's a community out there of people who believe this. These things that I never hear from the plastic talking heads in the mainstream media or the sold out, corporate politicians, the Democratic and the Republican Party, and so I agree. It's the self-censorship, and also the policing, the policing of, if someone says something, that's outside the mainstream, that the fear that someone else is going to label you a conspiracy theorist or anti-vax or Putin apologist or any of that crap, those the fear of those labels, and so that's a lot more effective than any kind of actual like physical or material form of control. Is that the control that we impose upon each other, that society teaches us, inculcates us to impose upon each other, and the self-censorship that it creates within us.
Absolutely. I just Googled how many people are in the CIA. I can't find how many. Okay, estimated here, 21,575 employees. So that's not very many people. That's 20,000 people, right? I think we could easily, if we get our message out there, have 20 million people. And now they all control you'll never find a real number. That's right, Jenny. You're absolutely right on that. But at least that's what their website, Wikipedia, says. Yeah, but there's not that many of them. You get what I'm saying? They control the media and they control your mind.
Yeah.
And they make you afraid. But those people who called them, they said, you know what? I ain't afraid of you. You might nail me up, but eventually your state will collapse unless you make a religion of me. Or this guy said, I'm not afraid of you. You're a paper tiger. If I stand up to you, you're not. And that it's amazing to me that he did it, dude. It's happening right now. He did it. He got a band of people that said, hell no, kill us. Can't kill all of us. There's a lot of us. You know what I mean?
Well, these systems of power are always more fragile than they appear. They always give the impression that it's more powerful, but a country's always just one, instance of a member of the military that refuses to fire on the protesters, That's, I
Mhm.
mean, because that's what happens historically in so many of these instances. That's, is that, conditions reach a boiling point in a country, thousands of people come out, they surround the government buildings in, in the capital city,
Mhm.
historically how revolutions happen and most successfully. And that's why they're so fucking terrified of what happened on January 6th, is like, and then, eventually when that happens and they occupy the capital city. This happened, of course, across Eastern Europe. It's happened in the Middle East. Occupy the capital city, and they stay there for weeks, and the government collapses. The government falls, especially if they take government buildings. And the way that, eventually the government, the state deploys the military or the guard to remove them, and eventually gives the order to fire. And but there comes a point where members of the military say, well, my own kids are there, my own family members, friends, neighbors are in that crowd protesting this regime, and they refuse to fire. And once one person does it, that spell of control is broken, and people realize, what, there's hundreds of millions of us, and there's just a few of them. There's just a few of them who are really, calling the shots, ultimately directing us. And if people just refuse to fire on the crowd, if they walk off the battlefields of World War I or Vietnam, then the spell is broken, and people remember that we have the ultimate power.
Amen. Amen. Well, I am, people agree with you, of course, and I am excited because I'm thinking of, Russia 1905. I think Bloody Sunday, they opened fire. Within 12 years, you had a revolution. We had the bonus army in this country. These are the questions I always wanted to ask you. And I'm creating the content I want to see on the internet now, thanks to your generosity, Nick. You're an absolute great guy. You're an inspiration to me. And thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule and making time for your boy T-Mac to talk about revolution.
Well, thanks for having me on, Tyler. I'm really glad you kicked off the YouTube channel. We've been chatting. You've been telling me how you've been getting it off the ground, and it's great. It's great to see. It's great to see it growing. It's great to see people tuning in. It's great to see so many people that I see also on Twitter, like Lumpia. Like, more power to you, Tyler. Happy to come back on anytime. And I'm so looking forward to when we get together again.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have to make a thing of it. We'll check in every couple months or something like that. And, it was really being around you and Caleb, because if you could look at my channel, my first videos were posted at CPI Chicago, and it was being around you and Garland and Tara Reid, and just seeing these people. Like, Garland got up and was like, his first words were like, I want to thank the CIA agent monitoring in this meeting. And just being around all these courageous people that just look the devil in the face and laugh. That's my favorite Che Guevara quote. Right before they shot him, he goes, pull the trigger, coward. You'll only kill a man. And I saw you guys, and I went home and I was scared. I was scared, like, oh no, what are people going to say? They're going to come after me. They're going to come after my family. I'm going to lose my job, blah, blah, blah. I said, screw it. I'm putting up all these videos. I'm putting up this video of my boy, Nick. I'm not going to be afraid of these people anymore. And I thank Caleb Maupin for that. And I thank Nick Brana for it too. You guys. And that's why they don't want people coming together like that. Because when you go to a meeting like that, you're in a room with 100 people that feel exactly like you, and they're willing to do something about it. And they know, because you can already see it growing. It's a spiritual war. Me and you are getting together. We're building each other up. We're saying, go out there, man. You keep doing what you're doing. I believe in you. And you say it right back to me. I believe in you too. We got a bigger cause. This ain't just about us. This is comradeship, brother. And I love you, and keep fighting the good fight. Okay.
Hell yeah. Right back.
Enjoy your Friday night, baby. Peace out.
All right. Good
Take
to
care,
see you.
my
Good
friends.
to see everyone. Have a good night.
Well, there he goes. We did it, y'all. We did it. I survived. I was nervous. That's Nick Brana, the Nick Brana. Ooh. He's the man, though. Super nice. Super nice guy. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nick. Thanks to all my friends for dropping by. Garland is hilarious. I love Garland. My wife always says, how long till Garland starts talking about eating people? Garland says things I didn't know I could say on YouTube. He'll be like, I tell you what, they're gonna come down there, they're gonna surround the building, and some of y'all gonna start getting pulled out. And then I'm like, that's enough to where I'm like, whoa. And then Garland just keeps going. And then they're gonna start a fire, and they're gonna pull your legs off, and they're gonna start roasting them like chicken legs, and then they're gonna eat them. Garland always goes to eating people like chicken legs, which I appreciate. I didn't know I could talk like that, but I love Garland. I want to talk to Garland one day too. But Nick, you helped me get over my fear of talking to people that I really respect. So maybe I'll reach out to Garland, see if he wouldn't talk to me. My wife says we share a brain. So, and Garland, I want to ask Garland, because on his channel he has like one of his only playlists saved is just trance music, which I love the idea of. Garland just you know. I think I'm gonna go for 2 hours. That's and this will count as my stream for the week. So we'll end about 7. My brother's in town, and he wants to eat tacos. So we'll do half an hour. And my brother just got married. I don't know if you ever watched this, Adam, but congratulations. We got a reception tomorrow. We're gonna do that. I had a couple other videos. I've got a big list of just interesting topics I want to talk about. And there's one, I haven't watched this in a long time, but I remember watching it back in the day and just being like, oh man, I gotta watch that on stream. Let me find it real quick. This is shared. There's a couple people been on Joe Rogan that just made my brain be like, oh my gosh. So I haven't seen this guy in a long time, but he was on Joe Rogan, and former CIA agent Mike Baker on China's 2049 plan. There's all kinds of good ones that I need to do this one too. The Morality of CIA Assassins with Eddie Jacobson. I know I need to watch that because I haven't seen it in forever. I wasn't doing a YouTube channel at the time. It was always kind of in the back of my head, but I watched it and gave it a thumbs down. So that must have been one. Let's okay. This is CIA agent Mike Baker on I love former CIA agent Mike Baker. Sure, buddy. Sure. Well, let's watch this guy talk about China in oh, amen, Richard. That'd be amazing. Tacos are delicious. Dora Nixon 2024. I'm gonna watch these two because they're a pair. All right, but we're gonna have to watch them. I might speed it up a little bit. I don't know if I can handle it at normal speed. Let's try 1.5 speed here. Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
I'm very excited to talk to you because I had a guy on, Jamie Metzler yesterday, a scientist who scared the shit out of me, talking about China. He's talking about China. We were talking about China amassing naval power, China's taking over tech companies, and how huge they're getting and how much influence they have over their people as opposed to the way we do it.
Well, he's not wrong.
No.
I can't spot the lie in what you just said, but I mean, look, there's so much we can talk about, but if you think about it, just in the past handful of months, there was this SolarWinds hack, right, by the Russians. So the Russians go in, they hack into a company called SolarWinds. There is an IT management software company that happens to be fairly deep into government organizations, agencies, Treasury, and a variety of others throughout the U.S. government. And they're also into parts of the intel community, Defense Department, and a lot of commercial sectors. So anyway, the Russians figured this out. Now, around about December or January, Microsoft, identified this as a problem. And I think it was the head of Microsoft said, this looks like the most sophisticated attack we've ever seen. So this is December, January timeframe. And they're still trying to figure out the depth of this hack by Russians. At the same time, and going back months and months and months and months before, the Chinese had been engaged in a more sophisticated attack that, while everyone is focused on what's going on and so fully aware that we got problems, right, from nation states out there who don't like us, everybody's talking about SolarWinds. And now it's, they've just now released information about the Chinese attack against Microsoft Exchange servers, running the Exchange email systems. And this thing is enormous. And so the Chinese, we've been so focused for 4 years on the Russians, and they're out there to cause us all sorts of problems. So we should be focused on them. But it's China that's the biggest problem. And so this guy is absolutely right. Jamie's right.
It was terrifying. Yeah. Listen to what he was talking about, the way he was explaining how they have this plan. I think he said 2049 to be the global superpower of the world and essentially take the place of what America used to be.
Yeah,
they do it their way.
And they do it their way, which means we're going to bypass all the costs and the heavy lift of research and development over the years, and we're just going to steal everything. Yeah. And they've been doing it for decades. So people think, oh, China, it's a problem.
Wow. This is where I stopped because I started fuming. What did he say? They're not going to develop. They're just going to steal. Isn't that what he said?
Yeah, they do it their way.
And they do it their way, which means we're going to bypass all the costs and the heavy lift of research and development over the years, and we're just going to steal everything. Yeah. And they've been doing it for decades. So people think, oh, China, it's a problem. It's a problem.
That's the heavy lifting. It's not the people like actually lifting things. Which is like, it's the factory of the world. They're just going to steal it all. They're just going to steal it all. Well, here's my question. Who moved it all over there to let them steal it? You dumb. All right, I got to speed this.
We've talked about this before. This idea that perhaps this is just something relatively new or it's popped up during the previous administration of Trump. And honest God's truth is it's been going on for decades. And they decided that that's how they're going to get to the top of the food chain, is by stealing shit, because it's a lot easier to hoover up everything and then reverse engineer it. And the technology has made it even easier, right? It used to be old school. They'd go out and recruit somebody. They'd find some Chinese American working for a company here in the States. They'd appeal to sort of, you got to help the motherland, and they would. And that was the old school way of doing it. But, cyber theft it's incredible what they're able to do. And this latest attack, while they're still trying to sort out the mess, right?
So when they do this, so if they get into this email server, are they targeting anything specific? Is there specific companies? Are they just like throwing a net out there and seeing what they catch?
Yes, is the answer to both of those. It looks like what happened here was that their initial point of attack, or the initial focus, was intelligence, right? So then it branched out, and it branched out very, very quickly, right, to hit everything: small companies, medium-sized companies. And that's kind of the MO for the Chinese. The Chinese regime, right? Their intel operations, they've got this long vision, and they've also got the resources, and they've got the desire to hoover up everything and then sort it out later. We take, as a country, we take a very sort of targeted approach, right? We say, okay, this is a piece of information that's a priority tasking for the U.S., for our national security.
Yeah.
We're going to go out, we're going to figure out who has access to it. We're going to develop a very sort of surgical strike to figure out how do we get to someone who's got this
like
piece of
the NSA.
That's typically how
mass
collection would operate.
Everything you've ever said on a cell phone.
I mean, the Russians is less elegant. The Russians will just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, right? But the Chinese, they've got this long view, and they've also got this ability. And so in this particular attack that they're still trying to assess, that was perpetrated by, Chinese state-sponsored hackers based in China, they're just going to take everything, and then they'll sift through it. They'll figure out what they got. A lot of it's going to be just, chafe, not of interest, but they're going to find a lot of gold in there too. And they're willing to do that because they've got the patience to do it. They'll develop a target. They'll develop a potential recruit for years and years and years, or they'll infiltrate a society or an organization, right? They'll put a student out here who's actually working for the PLA, for their intel operations, and they'll put him out as an undergrad. then they'll go to school and they'll get good grades and they'll go to grad school and they'll get a job and they'll get another job. And then 30 years down the line, it may pay off, but they're willing to make that investment.
I mean, it's just amazing to me that he's like, that's a horrible thing that they do, like dedicating their entire lives to their country. And they're both like, I can't imagine.
So
we should be scared.
Well, we shouldn't be scared, but we should, I don't think we should be scared, but I think what we should be is pragmatic and understand why. For instance, I mean, there was a lot of, hue and cry over the past 4 years. I can't believe I just said hue and cry.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't know. It's old timey.
Is it?
Oh my golly. Look at me.
Cry?
It's like the cat's pajamas. So 4 years of Trump and sort of his antagonistic relationship with China, and people were all wringing their hands in Washington, D.C. The think tankers and the traditional pundits and the diplomats of the U.S. The long-term people. Oh my God, we've got this adversarial relationship with China. Well, you know what? We better. Right. So that's not a bad thing. So I'm hoping the current administration maintains to some degree, and we'll see what happens. They still haven't responded to the SolarWinds, to the Russian hack. Right. They're talking about it now. They're saying they're going to engage in several clandestine retaliatory acts. Well, it's not that clandestine because they've announced that they're going to do it. And so, but I'm hoping that they will take serious action against the SolarWinds Russian hack. But they've got to with China. They've got to maintain this posture. We've got to make it clear and understood to the Chinese regime that we're not going to put up with this shit. They're going to keep doing it, but we got to make it painful for them.
Good luck, buddy.
Well, it's the old word sanctions. You got to go with the sanctions because there's not much else. Trade wars. I know everybody hates a trade war. Not everybody, but you've got to find a way, because the problem with cyber shenanigans is that there's no real clear definition, right? We know if a country fires a ballistic missile off, we know what the retaliatory act is. We know what an appropriate response is. In cyberspace, when you're talking about warfare, coming up with a definition is very difficult and hasn't been done yet. We've got Cyber Command, right? And we're still trying to sort out what are appropriate responses, because they can escalate quickly, right? Next thing you know, they can shut down our infrastructure, right?
Well, that's what I want to talk to you about. Supposedly what they did in India. Mm-hmm. So if you could explain that to people, they shut down the power grid in India, allegedly. They said they didn't do it, but apparently there was some sort of a warning about the power going out, right?
Yeah. They've done it. The Russians did it famously in Ukraine, right? Not that long ago. And China's ability to interfere in infrastructure here in the U.S. or in India or with our allies is because for years now they've been probing. There's been testing going on. We talk about. It's a good example. We talk about how in the U.S. we have 3 grids, and I think people were stunned to find out that Texas has its own power grid. Well, yeah, but it's not so like people were like, "Oh my God, look at Texas, they're terrible," because they wanted to make it a political thing. Right? Yeah. They wanted to make it sound like the reason why it's so terrible is because it's Republicans and they want their own independence. Well, no, all 3 grids are fucked. Right? The East, the West, and the Texas grids are all cobbled together over the years. So it's it's like a patchwork quilt, and they were never built to withstand physical attacks. You can drive by any substation, right? You can get close enough to pee on it. And they certainly were never designed to withstand a cyber attack. So over the years, what goes on is essentially a mapping exercise, right? Where whether it's the Russians, whether it's the Chinese, whether it's the North Koreans using Chinese capabilities, whether it's the Iranians, whomever, they're in there probing and trying to understand the weaknesses, and they're drawing up a map. Now, the reason why they're doing that is to have a game plan, right? And I guarantee you, sitting on a desk somewhere not too far from Xi's office is a playbook that says, if this thing escalates, here's what we're going to do. And if you think that it was bad in Texas, a couple of weeks ago when power was out, and it was bad, but think about that lasting for 8, 10, 12 weeks around the country, right? Power grid shut down. What happens? You can't transport shit, right? You can't get cash. Fuel doesn't get to the gas stations. Food doesn't get to the stores. Depending on the time of year, heat issues, obviously, water supplies. And that's where the next big battle is going to be fought, right? They're going to bring it to the homeland, and we will do the same thing, right? It's not like we're not doing it, because people always say, when I say something, well, the U.S. doesn't do. They go, well, fuck yeah, the U.S. does it. We better hope we're
does that frustrate you when people say that? Well, the U.S. does it too.
Yeah, it does in a sense, because this is where I think, now personal opinion comes into it. Like, I spent most of my adult life overseas, and I like to think that I've got a fairly pragmatic view on things. I do admit that obviously, look, I look at the U.S. and I like to think, and I have seen on occasion, we do a lot of things for the right reason. Sometimes we don't do it properly, right? We make mistakes. Of course, we make mistakes, but we try to self-correct. I guarantee you, if we're talking about the major powers out there, if we're talking about China and us, we're talking about the Chinese regime, if we're talking about the Russians, the Iranians, North Koreans, we better hope that we stay up there, right? And are able to exert influence and leverage and control at the top, right? Because if it's, and again, maybe I'm wrong here, but the Chinese don't view anything in an altruistic manner. The Chinese regime, right? It's all about self-interest. And sometimes we seem to be the only country out there that apologizes.
Except for themselves, except for their own population that supports them like 90%, I think, in that Harvard poll. They don't care about anyone. Like our government cares about us. You sweet summer child, or you paid lying hack. One of the two.
That's right, for that sort of thing. And so when we act in our own best interest, we go, well, we're really sorry about that. We're kind of acting in our own best interest. Well, every other nation does it, and they don't give a fuck.
Yeah, but shouldn't we be the moral high ground for the world? I think we should. I think it's nice if we do all the same shit they do. We say sorry.
Yeah, I guess that's a constant thing to say sorry. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
We're setting a tone.
Yeah, I guess that's true. As long as we're also then at the same time acting in our own best interest, because we have to be pragmatic. If we think that somehow look at climate change. That's obviously back on the table. It's a big issue. It's a major policy direction. Hey, fine, great. Who doesn't want clean energy? But to act as if China's not the number one polluter out there is insane.
Yeah, that's what gets weird.
Yeah, it gets a little weird.
Giant difference between the amount of particulates, the amount of pollution, the amount of CO2. I think they've tried hard to mitigate that over the last few years in particular. But you remember when they had the Beijing Olympics and they had to shut everything down because the air quality was so bad that the athletes, it would actually be dangerous for the athletes to perform and to compete. Catch new episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience.
We watched that. I thought he talked more about Africa. Maybe that just popped in my head. Like I was like, you're talking about the Chinese stealing stuff. Go ask an African who has stolen their stuff over the years. You know what I mean? Is it the Chinese? Or was it those pasty countries over there in Europe and America who stole their stuff, including their live human beings? But yeah, the Chinese. Ooh, the Chinese. Let's see. I did look this up while I was watching that. I need a little break between these two videos just filled with nonsense. Map of oil around the world. I need to get a nice one of these and hang it up in my classroom. There you go. This one looks nice. Now, I feel like you can just look at this and like understand geopolitics. The people need this. And let's go through it. So these are our B words up north. The B word. This is us. So that it's kind of becoming Oceania from 1984. Orwell did. He was a sellout for his friends, but he did kind of nail that. These people are over here in this camp. So this is America. America's hat, as my Canadian friend used to call it. America. We've got, I'd say on the Russian side there. Russian, China. I'm just going to say Russia, China. Nigeria. I don't know a whole lot about it. I would guess over here, though. I don't know why they'd side with these people. Saudi Arabia, kind of flipping. We never thought we'd see it. We always thought they'd be over here. I think they might be going over here. And you'd be surprised, Richard. You'd be surprised. A lot of people like it. Getting the real deal in, everybody knows. Let's see. Well, these people are definitely in this side. These people right there. This is what Richard said, in case anybody wanted to know. Iraq, Libya. Yeah, I think we're all pretty much on this side over here. So we're very isolated. We're going to make our own little power center, and it's only going to be right here. That looks like what's going to happen. If this chart is correct, we have plenty to make that go on for a long time. But globalization is over. That's obviously over. There's a new guy that where's it at? There's a new guy, Glenn Greenwald's been getting me, or not Glenn Greenwald, Garland Nixon has got me into, and his name is where's my history at? I think it's John Ralston Saul, I believe. Yeah. John Ralston Saul was writing about how like globalization was going to end like 10 years ago. Is that his name? Yeah, he wrote Voltaire's Bastards. John Ralston Saul. If you guys haven't watched him, you should check him out. He's really fun to listen to. I fall down these rabbit holes, and this is him being interviewed by Chris Hedges, and it's just amazing. It's amazing how much he was able to see so long ago. This is The Cult of Neoliberalism. Let's play a little bit of it so you can get a taste of them.
What they did was most universities was they did an intellectual cleansing of the economic historians to remove the possibility of doubt, the possibility of speculation on ideas, leaving these sort of hapless, mainly hapless macroeconomists who fell quite easily into the hands, frankly, of the ideologues.
So that's exactly what Michael Hudson said. And I actually have a note from Michael Hudson. I made a note because he told you what to read. He's like, if you actually want to know, to learn true economic history, here's what he said. He said, read Adam Smith, Thomas Malthus, David Ricardo, John Stuart Mill, Karl Marx, Thorstein Veblen, and Simon Patton. And this is his quote. He said, that wasn't the case a century ago or even 2 centuries ago. There have been many economists who have explained the world. The classical economists from Adam Smith through Malthus and Ricardo refined the basic concepts of value and price theory. John Stuart Mill got even more to the political point by describing landlords and rentiers as receiving income in their sleep, not by working productively. Marx got even better. He was optimistic about where capitalism was going, assuming that society's major overhead, the landed aristocracy surviving from feudalism, would be taxed away. Thorstein Veblen helped explain how the vested interests were financializing the economy to become the most important rentier class. Other leading economists are people that America haven't heard very much about, like Simon Patton, the first professor of economics at America's first business school, the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. Patton became an intellectual mentor, turning economics into sociology early in the 20th century. There used to be an enormous amount of analysis based on history and empirical and statistical analysis. But that is included from today. That is excluded from today's postmodern curriculum, leaving no way to fit reality into the academic patter talk of neoclassical economics. So I'll copy that whole note into the chat for you guys. I don't know if it'll let me type things that long. Yeah. It lets me type a lot of it. But you can go back and look at it if you want. I haven't heard very much about. I got to put it in 2 notes here. There you go. That's my whole note with the quote. And this is the source that I got it from, if you want to go watch it yourself. Oh, well, that whole thing didn't go in there, but you can figure it out if you want. And I got one last video I want to watch of Jocko Willink, who I actually like Jocko. Jocko's been helping me get up in the morning. Jocko has this alarm you can listen to. He's the ultimate rise and grind guy. Let's look up Jocko alarm and just give you a taste. I almost made this on my phone once. Wake up and get after it. So this is the guy. And I've been waking up early. I appreciate it, Jocko. The Jocko alarm. Let's do this one. Psychological warfare.
So, I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to get up and get out of bed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
He's too merciful. This is too much time.
8, 9.
Thomas, I think, Lumpia.
10.
I think it was Thomas.
Okay. If you're up and you're now ready to
I think
get
that's
after it, you can go ahead
Malthusianism.
and shut this off.
But you need to know
won.
it to know where it comes from.
You can proceed on to go get stronger and faster and better.
That's awesome.
But if you are still actually lying in bed, then I can't stop right now. You have to keep listening. I need to tell you about the mistake that you are making. I need to tell you what you will feel like later in the day. You will feel weak. You will feel groggy. You're going to feel like a loser, like a person that fell short, that failed the first test of the day.
Failed.
All you had to do was get up, get out of bed. Instead, you stayed in that warm bed and squandered the opportunity to train and to get better. And that will be a downward spiral for your day. Undisciplined and weak.
That's right.
Or instead, you can get up, get out of bed, go splash some water on your face, and then do 10 burpees. Just 10 burpees right now to get your blood flowing.
10 burpees.
And I promise you will not feel tired anymore. So let's go now. Get up and get after it.
There you go. Made a few myself, a few contributions to the art farm. What did I call it? Oh man, it's slipping my mind. Stay hard. Let's see if it'll come up. No. I gotta find it. I'll show you guys some I made to go with it. Oh, here we go. If I can remember how YouTube works. My channel. That's how I find it. All right, here we go. This is inspired by David Goggins, if you guys know. David Goggins. Stay hard. Stay hard. Here's the one I made. This is the first one I made.
You know, sometimes I wake up at 1:30 a.m. and I say, do I really want to run 36 miles? Every bone in my foot is broken. And then I ask myself, what would Jesus do on the cross? Stay hard.
They get progressively crazier. This is my second one here.
You know, sometimes I wake up at 1:15 a.m. and I think, should I really run? Should I really do this? Should I really wear shoes or get out there in the snow? And then I ask myself, what would Sylvester Stallone do in First Blood Part 2? What would he do? What would Michael Jackson do before he's about to walk in that courtroom? Would he give up? No way. He'd get out there and run his 36 miles with one sock on. This is Tyler McConnell telling you to go out there and seize the day. Stay hard. You know.
Okay. This one more. The most ridiculous. It's funny because some of them will be watched by thousands of people, and then the best one I make is watched by like 5 people.
Sometimes you wake up and you start the day at 12:01 a.m. and you ask yourself, do you really want to run 57 miles before you go to work in the lead mine? You ask yourself, Do you really need 2 socks? Are you just being a wuss? But then I think about my brothers who gave it all. At Hill 364, Blood Gulch, and Fortnite Island. I reach down deep inside myself. I get out that door with no shoes on. You know, some mornings I think about not going in school teaching, not corrupting the youth of Salem. Socrates himself appears before me and says, Tyler, you drink that hemlock, sucker. You do it, and you like it, because it's what you're supposed to do. Stay hard.
There you go. If you guys don't know who David Goggins is, you gotta at least you have to have seen him before for that to make sense to you. It's his first one. I don't know where here's like a. Usually it's him like out running with his shirt off. Oh, my poor computer's starting to struggle. Maybe if we put in shorts afterwards. Shorts. Yeah, there you go. Let's watch this one. Yeah, but he's always working out, Jenny. Always.
So I've been grinding lately. Had to go back to the fucking lab. Readjust some shit in my brain. Put a lot of miles in. Every day. Run over 20 miles a day. Getting up early. Going to bed early. Eating the right shit. This last week started taking a toll on me. I usually don't think too much. Get my shoes on, head the fuck out. I've been thinking a lot. That internal voice has been talking to me. Talking about, oh man, you're tired. Looking at my shoes about 30 minutes before I put the motherfuckers on. Pushing back the time that I go out to go run. So I decided to tape record myself. That internal voice I put on tape. Sounds like a straight bitch when I listen to that motherfucker. So if you ever have a hard time out there, tape yourself. Listen to what kind of bitch you're being. Stay hard.
It's good advice, David.
Lately. Had to go back to the fucking.
It's good advice, David. I'm gonna pull Jackson Hinkle and do it. There we go. That got me ready. That got me ready for this final stream, which I'm going to attack, and then we're going to go eat some tacos. Let's see if this will work. No, that's not it. I've copied other things since then. How about this one?
Stay free with
No,
me,
that's
Russell
not
Brand.
it. All right, I'm gonna gotta look at my notes. YouTube. There it is. Copy. Now this is Jocko Willink, the guy that did the alarm clock, talking about Asian countries. Former Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink. These guys
Stay
really.
free with me, Russell
Why did
Brand.
do that again? Oh no, this is it. Oh, I did have it right. I forgot that it was Russell Brand. Okay. Okay. Is this how the U.S. blew up Nord Stream with Jocko Willink? Okay, here you go.
Shy, right? One of the things they said around the Nord Stream 2 pipeline is it wouldn't be possible that, like, America don't have the submersive capacity, but in truth, would America? I think it's in the Baltic Sea at a level of 200 feet. Purely hypothetically, would it be possible for a special forces team to undertake the sabotage of a pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. Did you have to do stuff like that? Explosives under the water, that sort of Navy SEALs all day long, isn't it?
I mean, it probably would have been some kind of an unmanned drone, an underwater drone that would do something like that. Why would you send a diver down there when you could send a robot?
Right, you can do that relatively easily. Thank you.
Yeah, with no risk.
Do you become cynical about those kind of do you become cynical about the way that these things are covered and reported, having a degree of understanding around how this stuff actually works?
I guess the only thing that I find, and when I see you, when I see what you post about as well, I think it's just people get stuck into one like digital ecosystem in their brain, and depending on what side you're on, you either only listen to this ecosystem or you listen to this ecosystem, and there's not too many outlets that are sort of just trying to keep an open mind and listen to both sides of a story and just try and find out what the truth is.
That's not me, Jocko. Every day in my journalism class, we watch CNN, Amy Goodman, and we just wait until she talks about climate change or an identity group, and then we watch RT. So we get the broad spectrum of what's going on. It's not me, Jocko.
So that's what I think, and I think people in social media go crazy about things that based on some assumption or based on the ecosystem that they're living in. So I think
you're living
pretty
in
unfortunate.
one, Jocko.
I'm not sure what's going to get us out of that, but it's pretty sad to see people that are so sucked into one methodology of thinking that you can't even really have a conversation with them. I know I have friends that are one extreme or another extreme, and it's hard to talk to them sometimes because they just don't, their mind is so closed off to hearing any other points of view. It can be very challenging to even have a discussion with them, and it's better just to not talk about it because, if you're my friend,
Amen.
Russell, and you're freaked out about something, and I say, well, there's another possible viewpoint, and you just get mad and started, yelling at me, then maybe I'll just talk about something else. How about?
Well, this, Jenny, we read in Emerson today. We're reading Self-Reliance, and he said, if I know your sect, I anticipate your argument. But the thing is, people think they know our sect, but they don't. They just know some like lie that they've been told about what we believe. That people in America know nothing about socialism or communism that's real. It's just the History Channel or their 8th grade civics teacher or whatever, or Jocko, whatever. I doubt any of these books are Lenin or Mao or Marx. I could be wrong. I will say, making fun of Jocko. I think Jocko's probably a good guy. I think he's a good guy. I just don't. He's very emblematic of a lot of Americans and what he's about to say.
How about the football game? Let's talk about that instead.
This is combat liberalism, right? Let's just talk about the football game. Let's not talk about like politics.
I think our media is definitely a problem.
But I wonder if China and Russia indeed have expansionist
100%.
goals of that nature. And it's pretty clear that the United States, or at least the set of interests represented by the United States government, do have an expansionist agenda that is, causing, in my view, unnecessary suffering.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because if America had a true expansionist agenda, we would have taken over the entire world, after World War II. But we didn't. Okay. Map of U.S. military bases around the world. But we didn't. Well, let's look at it. Let's quit sharing Jocko for just a second. And let's share this real quick. U.S. military reach. There you go. They're everywhere. So back to Jocko. He hasn't said the really crazy thing yet. So
Here we go.
So I don't know that that's the case, or maybe there's a group of people that want to expand. I think I think China may look to expand. I mean, when you look at what they're doing inside their culture, it certainly seems evident that they're looking to expand. Obviously, Russia's trying to expand because they just invaded Ukraine. So there's some expansionist going on there. I don't think that America, I actually don't think that America has an expansionist mindset because, like I said, otherwise we would have expanded. We would have taken over everything. And we didn't. In fact, we nurtured Japan back to health. We nurtured Germany back to health where they could have their own country.
So I just got done reading Hiroshima in my journalism class. We nurtured it back to health. Sorry about your eyeballs melting in your skulls. Sorry about that. Sorry about what happens to you in the 3 stages of radiation poisoning. Sorry about that. Hey, but we got you back. We fixed it, right? As long as you, and that's what I really made me want to share this video. As long as you let us have our military base in Okinawa, you try to shut that down, oh buddy, you're gonna find out how much we nursed you back to health. Like, listen to this.
That's what we've done in these wars. So I don't really think that's a piece of it. But going to something else that you said, what's scary is, you're saying, hey, with these wars that have taken place, it seems like we should have some kind of a massive social awakening. If World War I didn't trigger a massive social awakening to never have a war again, then
it did. It was called the Soviet Union.
I have no idea what it's going to take, Russell, because
your military
it wasn't
it.
What 20 years later that World War II was kicking off. This is after millions and millions of men were slaughtered for nothing. And yet you fast forward a few years and we were in World War II. So I don't know what kind of social awakening we could hope for. I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure. If World War I didn't do it, I'm not sure what will.
Well, some people would argue that the conditions imposed on Germany after World War I, in a sense, created the tensions that led to World War II. And absolutely, it was a refusal to take on board the lessons of that mode of 20th century imperialism that led to another pretty awful conflict. With regard to American expansionism, some would argue that unlike the forms of colonialism that preceded it, like British colonialism, where it was all flags and crowns and jewels and people marching about, that it was undertaken in a more invisible and economic form through like a trade and corporatism and relationships between like the countries that have even been listed in this conversation are somewhat bound by an agenda that's ultimately beneficial to American corporate interests, whilst I'm not suggesting that ordinary American people in any way benefit from whatever economic ties resist as a result of the treaties
100%.
between America and Japan, say, or any of the other nations. And like, speaking as a British person, ultimately, after the Second World War, there's certainly an argument for saying we became a sort of de facto state. And whilst we very much cherish what we still call the special relationship, I think it's pretty clear who's at the front and who's at the back, as it were, in that particular loving cuddle across the Atlantic. So like really, like I suppose when I'm talking about spiritual awakening, what I feel like is when you talk about, people that would be willing to, at a drop of a hat, come to your aid, or people that are willing to confront the absolute necessity for sacrifice, people that are willing to undertake the kind of suffering that I've heard described in what is, as I understand, known as Hell Week in the Navy SEALs, that kind of discipline, that kind of willingness, that kind of capacity for human greatness played out without the kind of framing of the sort of cultural and economic model that it currently lives within could lead to different systems, if not perfect ones, better ones, different types of leadership. If we had leaders that lived by the accord that you have described as being the creed of the Navy SEALs, like leaders that were about sacrifice and service rather than the fulfillment of lobbyist agenda or corporate agenda and sort of puppet governments, that for me, that would be the one way of instantiating sort of governmental change, both a spiritual and practical kind of change. But that's not really a question, Jocko. That's more of a wishful announcement I'm making. What entire episode?
So yeah, I mean, his two examples of countries that we helped bring them back. We helped bring them back. He said, Germany. Is there a military base there still? You bet. How about Japan? Is there a U.S. military base there? You bet. So that's his idea of, helping them back on their feet. Leaving the military behind, of course. If you don't call that an empire, I don't know what you call it. But America, the empire that pretends it's not an empire, right? And I just encourage you to do one more thing. Make sure I'm on mine here. And here's what I want Jocko to do as well. Jocko, I want you to go to Google, okay, just like this. I want you to type in Killing Hope by William Bloom. Now you might be like, oh, that's just one of those people in a bubble, right? Just wait. The third website, can you see who that is? Can you see? That's the CIA.gov. Look at that. Let's click on it. Surely we can trust them. They're the ones that decide where the Navy SEALs go. Really? Especially if they went down to that Nord Stream. Let's click on that. Look at that. Well, the CIA. You got the whole book online. That's kind of interesting. They also honestly have The Secret of the Ages by his name's slipping my mind right now, but the Masonic Pyramids book. They're looking into that too. Here we go. All you need to do. Killing Hope, U.S. military and CIA intervention since World War II. Here's all the countries, and I'm an American, so I can't pronounce them all, but I would encourage you. China, was Mao Zedong just paranoid? Italy, free elections, Hollywood style. You've got it all. Everywhere where democracy just wasn't going exactly the way we wanted, we helped it out a little bit. And these are all the countries that we helped it out in. Free elections, Hollywood style. Greece, from cradle of democracy to client state. The Philippines, Korea, Albania, Eastern Europe, Germany, Iran, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Syria, and the Middle East, Indonesia, Western Europe, British Guyana, Soviet Union, Italy, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. Hey, CIA. My wife is Hmong. Her dad is a refugee. So I guess I should thank the CIA, right? Doing good around the world. Haiti, Guatemala, France, Algeria, Ecuador, the Congo, Brazil, Peru, Dominican Republic. We did all that with good intentions. Yes, we did. Indonesia. Oh, that's a good one. Liquidating 500,000 communists. I'm just trapped in a bubble, Jenny. You're trapped in a bubble. Ghana, Uruguay, Chile. A hammer and sickle stamped on your child's forehead. Is that a death squad operation? Greece, F your parliament and your constitution, said the president of the United States. Bolivia, that's where we got Che Guevara. You got to give that excellent line. Shoot, coward, you'll only kill a man. Guatemala, a less publicized final solution. Costa Rica, Iraq, Australia. Oh, yeah, covert action should not be confused with missionary work. This is often, you'll see a missionary group. You wouldn't think they'd stoop to that. Oh, you bet they will. Australia, Angola. I can't, is it Zeri? Jamaica, Seychelles. I can't say that. Grenada, Morocco, Suriname, Libya, Nicaragua, Panama, Bulgaria, Iraq, Afghanistan, El Salvador, Haiti, and just keep adding on, you know. But I think maybe we should just go to, let's just go to Korea, page 44, and we'll just read like one paragraph if I can find it here, and that'll be the stream. But Jocko, if you watch this, and Mike Baker, if you watch this, you probably know all this, I'd imagine. You're just on Joe Rogan for other reasons to pretend you don't know all this. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. Maybe you don't. To die for an idea, it is unquestionably noble, but how much nobler it would be if men died for ideas that were true. H.L. Mencken. I need to get his collected works for my journalism class. How is it that the Korean War escaped the protests which surrounded the war in Vietnam? Everything we've come to love and cherish about Vietnam had its forerunner in Korea. The support of a corrupt tyranny, the atrocities, the napalm, the mass slaughter of civilians, the cities and villages laid to waste, the calculated management of the news, the sabotaging of peace talks. But the American people were convinced that the war in Korea was an unambiguous case of one country invading another without provocation. A case of the bad guys attacking the good guys. Isn't that what Kamala Harris said about the Ukraine? You got a big country, that's Russia, and the Ukraine's a small country, and the big one's attacking the little one, and that's it. Terrorists hate our freedom. Case of the bad guys attacking the good guys who were being saved by the even better guys. None of the historical, political, and moral uncertainty that was the dilemma of Vietnam. The Korean War was seen to have begun in a specific manner. North Korea attacked South Korea, and there, blah, 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 blah. No one seemed to know how it all began, when, or why, and there was little in the way of accusations about American imperialism in Korea. The United States, after all, was fighting as a part of a United Nations army. What was there to protest about? And of course, there was McCarthyism so prevalent in the early 1950s, which further served to inhibit protest. So, yeah, I don't know exactly where it is in here, but he talks about how every structure over a single story was bombed. Every single major infrastructure, like bridge, dams, they were all taken care of, all bombed. It was reduced to absolute dust. There's some talk that they used germ warfare, like most things the CIA does. It's hard to prove, but you know, they tested out quite a few things over there, and no one really looked into it. They killed, I believe, 4 million. 4 million Koreans died. And then to think what they've done in South Korea. From what I understand, they're trying to get back together, but is there a U.S. military base? Yeah, look into those brainwashed U.S. soldiers. That's a fun one. Because it really just sounds like somebody like me got a hold of them and talked to them. And they had to call that brainwashing because we couldn't say, oh, the communists were making sense, that they were fighting an imperialist war. Probably just out of high school, sent over there. My grandpa was in the service at this time. He never, scorched earth policy, saturation bombing. Yeah, bomb all their food. You can kiss that group of villages goodbye, exclaimed Captain Everett L. Hudley of Kansas City. I would say that almost the entire Korean peninsula is just a terrible mess. Everything is destroyed. There is nothing standing worthy of a name. So that's a major general from the U.S. The worst of the bombing was yet to come. It just goes on and on and on. It's no exaggeration to state that South Korea no longer exists as a country. Its towns have been destroyed, much of its livelihood eradicated. And the North Koreans still stand up with their head held high, able to develop a nuclear bomb. Why did they do that? Because they saw what happened in Iraq and what happened to Gaddafi in Libya. Because they'll come for you. They absolutely will. When the war ends, no gratitude can be expected from the South Koreans, but it is hoped that the lesson will have learned that it is worse than useless to destroy, to liberate. Certainly, Western Europe would never accept such a liberation. The worst of the bombing was yet to come. That began in the summer of '52 and was Washington's way of putting itself in a better bargaining. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Yeah, dig into the details, and I think you'll feel a little bit different about it. I think you'll feel a little bit different about it. You're siding with the bullies, you know. We had a Veterans Day celebration today at school. I showed my respects to the veterans because I think a lot of them don't have the analysis of the geopolitics of what's going on. You know, they wanted to serve their country, and a lot of the veterans that have came over to our side, they explain that, say the same thing. But I leaned over to my friend and I said, I wouldn't mind at all to die in a war, as long as it was a war over something I believed in. And I'm afraid the enemy ain't overseas. The enemy ain't in Russia. The enemy ain't in China. The enemy is right here at home. They control Wall Street. They control the oil companies. They control the politicians in DC. And they definitely control everything you see on a TV screen. They control the social media companies. They definitely control Elon Musk if he gets out of line. But you see, he has a little more power than the rest of us because we live in capitalism and he has a lot of capital. And that's who's truly free in this society. Donald Courtier's North Korea series is fire. I got to check that out. This person's asked if I support Russia. I support Russia, I support China, and I support the United States working class. I support the working class over there. I support the working class over here. And I will stand till my last breath. I'd rather die on my feet than beg the World Economic Forum on my knees. I will stand till my last breath over here to try to get this country in America the government it deserves. Because we don't need to be going to war with poor people in a country over there. Eugene Debs said that in 1917 or whenever it was. They locked him up. You guys can lock me up too, but you're not going to shut me up. Okay? Because, as Russell Texas Bentley said, we got Lenin and God on our side. I'm going to try to find this video before I go. Portier, North Korea. He said his channel is Revolution Report. Let's see if I can find that channel. Revolution Report. Yeah, I'm just about done. The family's asking for their dad back. Have I seen this guy before? Oh, okay. Yeah. He's got a series. Oh, Don. Okay. He's got a series on North Korea. Okay. Wonder if you could put it in a playlist. I don't see it. Oh, okay. Uh-oh. Well, I'll have to find it, Jenny. It's not popping up right now, but I will find it. And if we find it, we'll check it out on a future one. What if I type in? Oh, here, let's just try one more time. Oh, that's cool. It's not cool, but let's see if this is it. Is it this top one, Jenny? North Koreans, are they brainwashed? North Korea, why is it a nuclear armed fortress state? Education in North Korea. DPRK miniseries trailer. Let's see if that has the trailer in it. Oh, it's in there. I'll just watch all those. I'll check all those out, Don. Anybody making stuff to educate the masses about what really went on over there, I definitely appreciate it. But thank you guys. DPRK series. DPRK. Okay, episode 1. That was the one at the top. So that'll go to episode 2 and 3. Awesome. So I'll check that out. And yeah, I'll put this up for you guys. I always feel weird doing this, but I feel like I'm scared if I don't. If you want to give once, you can do that on buymeacoffee.com right there. Probably should put www in there, but you'll find me. It's also in the description. And I got my first Patreon the other day. That was pretty cool. Someone in like Eastern Europe, I think. If I got that wrong, I apologize. But it was in euros, and I was like, that's sweet. I can't believe this old Missouri boy in rural America is getting euros. It's amazing. So thank you, Jenny. Thank you all for coming by, hanging out. I love y'all. Thank you, Nick, for making me famous. Thank you, Johnny, for being on fire. And thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Lumpia. Thank everybody that stopped by. I love y'all. Enjoy that Friday night. We still got some of it. We still got some to burn. All right. Y'all take care. And I'll see you next time. You could have been anywhere in the world on this Friday night, but you're on a stream with me with 2 people watching. And I appreciate that. Absolutely. I'm never going to knock it. I love everybody. Every person whose eyeballs look at this, I'm eternally grateful. So I love y'all, and I'll talk to you very soon. All right? I was drunk the day my mom got out of prison, and I went to pick her up in the rain. But before I could get to my station in the pickup truck, she got run over by a damn old train. And I'll hang around as long as you will let me. And I never minded standing in the rain. No, you don't have to call me darling. Darling, you never even called me. I wonder why you don't don't call me? Why don't you call me by my name? Woo! Good night, y'all.